All right, bring it in.
Tight fit in here.
All right. I know what you guys are saying. You're like, John, you just talked about buying this motor off of Logan, which is really just off of Turbo Bullet. Why would you bring it into the engine assembly room? Well, we're actually turning this into the engine disassembly room. Because you guys know how everything works. If you buy something off Turbo Bullet that isn't from myself or a reputable person, you're buying someone else's junk that they broke and can't fix or can't figure out how to get it right. So they're selling it to you. And here we are, all gloved up, ready to go deep inside this beautiful LS engine. That's a pretty good intro.
Yeah,
that's good. I mean, I put the glove on, like, pretty good. All right, so let's just dive right into this. Let's dive right into this. Here, I like my gloves. I look like I literally here. Pull this. No homo. Pull the glove off. Like, no, you just destroy it. Pull it from the back. My hands are dirty as hell. I don't even know why I put gloves on. Just it's literally for the intro. Let me look at that. We have some issues.
Slight issues.
This thing right here. Talk about this kind of like you're at home. This is what you get. You know, I said you're going to build this at your own risk when you're trying to save some pennies, save some dollars, and not go to TKM and just get like a package deal. You go to TKM, get a package deal, no questions asked, put it in, go racing. Try to save a little bit of money. Do it yourself. Buy a motor off of some guy down the road who's been building LS motors for 60 years. They haven't even been around for 60 years, folks. That's your first red flag. This thing right here has got some issues. Weisco pistons, K1 crank, K1 rods, ARP main studs. First, at appearance, you're like, oh, it looks pretty good. The deck seems to be machined. You hope that they put it together correctly. And then the first thing you look at is...
Looks like I thought it was graphite assembly, but it's starting to look like actual just bearing, like just grease.
This is...
bearing grease.
This is... I know exactly what it is. It's that Shell Rotella grease.
It smells like it when we tried to, you know...
We use it on all of our trailers.
Yeah, engine assembly lube, you know, under any kind of temperature, usually dissolve. It has a very liquid substance to it, not a thick, like, grease. And some of them do, but most of them don't. And the problem is it's also not really oil soluble, so you put grease on this thing and you crank it up, and it'll hammer the bearings out of it.
First startup dead.
Yeah.
So now, instead of being ready to drop in, I actually sent the cylinder heads to Kevin up at TKM just to get a little bit of work done to them. Like I said, to drop compression because this piston's a little bit more aggressive than I want to compression-wise. So sent some heads up there to Kevin. He's going to deck them. He's going to chamber soften them. We're going to drop the compression down to like 11.5 to 1. But now, instead of getting ready to, you know, put this thing in the car, we have to disassemble it. Go over everything. We're also going to check the ring gap because when you see stuff like this, you start to question, what else is right, what else is wrong.
Well, another thing, if you want to look at it, a lot of you guys have maybe already noticed, there's no assembly lube on any of the main studs.
Nothing.
So, any kind of ARP hardware studs, you know, that need to be, you know, it's to get the proper preload on the stud, it's designed to either use motor oil, and you have to change your torque specs if you're using motor oil, or the
provided
ARP,
lubrication.
Yeah, ARP moly lube. So having absolutely no lubrication at all on these studs is another red flag. So there's that. I don't have dial bore gauge or micrometer or anything to measure any of the bearing clearances, unfortunately. So we're just gonna hope, you know, I'll look at the bearings. Usually all this stuff's pretty close, you know. LS stuff, you don't have to really worry about having to mix and match bearing shells, but we're just going to kind of dive into it. We're going to check that, check ring gap, because right now, it's one of those things that it's not going to take much time. We have all the tools to do it, or most of the tools to do it.
Right now it is 11:27. We're supposed to leave at 7 o'clock tomorrow to go to Florida. So just so you guys have like a general idea what we got going on, we're going to knock this out pretty quick. We're just going to pull it apart, get some of this nonsense off there, and then we're going to just set it down on the table, mark what everything is. When we get back from Florida, we'll start the assembly process. The heads will be done from Kevin. We'll build the complete long block. And then I'm going to lock Matt in this room, and he's got to build a number of motors. We got the big block. We got 50 chance. This motor here's for sale. Logan's got himself a motor there with some Top Fuel hoops. We got a lot of shit to put together. And we got a small block Ford over there. LT motor here.
It's very crowded in here.
You know, look, Matt's pissed. Matt's like, this is my engine assembly room. Nothing but one motor in here at a time. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It's never good to be crowded while you're working. But we're going to take this apart.
Well, right,
like I said, right now,
about the process. What are we going to do?
We're going to flip it over. We don't have an etching tool because normally I would etch all the rods, each side of the cap, and that way you can tell, and then etch the bottom side of the piston. Usually anytime you assemble an engine, you want to have all your parts numbered or labeled some way. That way, too, if you have a catastrophic failure, you can be like, oh, yeah, it was piston number 5. Because sometimes it's like, it's something.
Which one's over here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, God, that's a rusty son of a gun right there, too.
Yeah. So,
oh, man.
Yeah.
Should have left the gloves on.
Yeah. Third, fourth.
And the rag down here. Don't mind.
The rods are a little rusty. The rod bolts aren't. That's good because there's a thing called stress corrosion cracking, and if you handle some rod bolts like L19 rod bolts, they can get damaged from just handling them. The oil and the sodium on your skin will cause the rod bolt to rust, and it can cause stress corrosion cracking. These rods, I don't think there's going to be really an issue on the beam, but
in the big picture, going out here making 1,000 horsepower on this stuff.
Yeah, I mean
it's probably fine.
Yep.
It's probably fine.
But we're gonna check everything out and make sure it's good because right now we have all good parts. If we ran it and something wasn't right, we could just turn all this into a paperweight, and it's just not worth it.
Financially, we'll never recover from this.
Ever. So we're gonna flip it over.
I'm gonna set the camera up on a time lapse. We'll get some time lapse stuff. I guess we'll pull a couple out. Then once we get a couple out, we'll talk about them, and then we'll go from there. Alright, do a little update here. We got 4 out. As soon as we pulled the first one out, looked at it, 100% just straight up like axle grease. Just kind of like Matt said. It's not the same as assembly lube. It's not going to go away when you fire it up. Kind of disheartening that someone would go through all the trouble to put a motor together. But hey, if you don't know, you don't know. I mean, it is what it is. That's why we're here, just trying to make it right. We want to be able to go out here and race this thing and run it every day and week and drive it around and not have any issues. Like Matt said, we got some good parts here already. It'd be a shame to tear them up now. So, Matt, looking at the, what are you taking one of the bearings out?
Yep.
Just what the doctor ordered?
Yeah, it's King Racing bearing. So. Alright, so we knocked some of these out. I haven't checked any of the rings or anything. There's a few things when you're taking it apart. A lot of rods, if you notice, like this one it's been laser etched 2434. They're all matched, so like it'll match up to the rod. It'll say
2434.
Yeah, it'll match up to the rod. Or if you guys are putting together a 4-cylinder or something, because you can always tell which way the rod cap goes because you have your radius here. And that goes on your crank fillet right here, so it fits. Like if you were to put this on backwards, then you got some problems. So if you guys are at home, you're like, man, which way does the rod go on the piston when you're putting it in there? The fillet always goes to the outside of the crank. 4-cylinder or any inline engine, it can go either way. So there's the way the bearing tang rotation is. There's a few different things. Taking it apart, there's no lube on the rod bolts or anything. So just stuff like that, there's a lot more to putting an engine together than just
putting it together. There, yeah.
Like, you know, there's checking bearing clamps. There's so many little things that you wouldn't even think like that would be a problem that can cause a catastrophic failure. So that's why we're taking it apart, just because we don't want to turn this. You know, this has got a lot of good parts, and we don't want to ruin them just because we're just like, we're just gonna run them. So if we take
initially when we talked about it, I was like, no, man, it'll be fine, ignorance is bliss type deal. But then the more and more you dig into it, the more you're like, hey, it's definitely the right call to take it apart.
Yeah, I mean, like the ring gap. If the piston ring butts together, like if your ring gap's too tight, you're going to have some serious problems. It will rip the piston apart. The whole entire top of the piston will just be separated. And when that happens, the rest of the motor is just going to fly apart. So, you know, when they were filing the rings, you know, they could have a ring upside down. You know, there's just, you know, seeing this, you know, there could be some other issue somewhere. You know,
a little bit of extra effort is to go through the rest of it will be worth its weight tenfold.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, you know, they might get a set of rings in a box and just think you just put the rings on there and go. Like, you know, they might not know you have to file them. So there's little stuff like that can cause some serious problems. We're trying to avoid all that. So we're going to get the other rods out of here.
So we're halfway through taking the rods out. We're going to get the other rods taken out, and then we'll pop the crank out, and that'll kind of be it. Just disassembly today. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, I want to check ring gap on a couple just to see, you know, what it is. So another trick, if you guys don't know it, when you're taking the engine apart and you got your rods, sometimes getting the rod cap off is a pain. They make some tools for it, but I've always just done this. You can take the bolt out a little bit. Don't take the bolt all the way out. Leave some of the thread engagement in there, and then you don't have to hammer on it, but you can just lightly tap. That'll separate it. Bolts out the rest of the way and knock the piston out. So these look like the pistons might have been used before. Is the skirt? No, they're brand new.
No, they're new. I think there was something in that one, or they had a tool or something in there, like they were trying to hammer it in or hammer it out. That one of them's got marks on the bottom, but
yeah, underneath the crown. So that's.
You generally see that if you had a catastrophic failure and other small pieces were in there.
Yeah,
but
you know, you get some stuff that's flying around in there. It'll cause that damage. You'd be amazed. Like, even when we had the lifter failure, just the smallest thing like a lifter, I mean, the rods, everything just got hammered on the sheet. So
yeah.
You can imagine if you have something that's actually large in there. Take the rubber end. Then bad because you don't have a cam. Sometimes if you know you're taking the motor apart and the cam's still on, for some reason I usually always take the cam out. Yeah, so like that one, it's got.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a tool of some sort. Like they were trying to do something with it.
It looks like they might have been trying to etch it or something.
They were terrible at that.
Yeah.
Not big etchers.
Making sure all the spiral locks and stuff are
just
correct, and there's both of them. Some people, so when you come with a kit, your engine will have a few different ways of retaining the wrist pin. Like we use buttons, so they just slide in and out. Very simple. A lot of street engines will use a circlip or spiral lock. The spiral lock's kind of a pain, but you got to make sure you put both of them in there. It's not like, you know, you put one in there, but the wrist pin will be loose. So don't do that.
All right, got a couple more. Then we're gonna start working on the mains and get everything all out. So back to the time lapse. Complete.
Disappointed.
Complete. Don't ever use grease for your trailer. Don't do this. Put that shit on your ball on the back of your truck, not in your engine.
Careful buying shit off Turbo Bullet.
Yes, careful. 0-5.
Kind of how it goes, I guess.
This thing right here was doomed if we tried to run it at all. I gotta sneeze. Hold on. COVID. All right, go ahead.
We found some.
Oh, we're missing an oil galley plug there.
Yeah.
By the way.
So you can see that the oil is, or the grease is just packed in all the oil galleys. So we try to heat it up with a torch and it just won't melt. Like it's going to be, maybe take it up to Kevin. He can put it in the Cuda and see if it'll kind of wash some of it out there, because otherwise it's just going to get pushed into the bearings. We talked about the spiral locks and the different kind of wristband thing, and I'm kind of glad we took this apart, because I looked at this one and I was like, man, that thing doesn't look like it's seated all the way, because sometimes they're kind of hard to get them to seat all the way. And you can see, like, I grabbed it with the pry bar. I mean, just barely pulled on it and it popped right out. So something like that, I mean, it comes loose, gets down to the motor, the wrist pin comes out. You know, well, the wrist pin can't come out, but what happens is when that pin starts sliding back and forth in the bore like that, it can damage the
cylinder
pin.
walls.
Well, not really a cylinder wall, because you got to think you have your buttons, and usually the buttons are rubbing up against it. It is aluminum, but it can cause the pin to gall, and when it galls in the piston bore, it'll just come apart. Like if there's anything in the motor that stops moving,
it all stops moving.
You're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. So good call to disassemble it. You guys heard me say yesterday, oh, you know, $7,000, you know, you make 1,000 horsepower. Well, now it's actually more expensive to get this thing running than it is to go and buy a turnkey package deal from TCAM.
Yep.
So, COVID. I would just say it's cheaper in the long run just to do it right, have the professionals do it, because look what bites you in the ass, you know? You got to think, how about this? We don't check it. We trust it. You got $7,000 in there. You go out there, destroys the whole motor. Heads aren't good. Nothing's good. You just threw $7,000.
Your cam, your oil pan,
your oil pump.
You know, I've seen motors blow up where it takes a transmission out. Like, you know, it just time sucks. Like that's one of the things. You know, we have the capability to take it apart, and that's I'm glad we did, because this is one of my fears when we're taking it apart. Is like, you know, sometimes I've taken a lot of motors apart that people, you know, they bought like, hey, you know, they just want to check it out and they've been good, and I've taken a lot and I'm like, man, if this thing ran, you really got to know who you're buying from. Even then, I've seen people like, oh, it's a Keith Craft motor, or it came from TKM, or it came from you know, so and so, and they're a really good engine builder, DeSoma or something.
Yeah, they literally just throw whatever company's name on it to sell it, and then
buy an engine that's got valve covers on it. Don't take it with a grain of salt. You know, because it's so easy to put a set of DeSoma valve covers on a small box.
I have sold motors that people put in their cars and run personal best first time out.
Yeah, no, I mean,
because I can't have people calling me saying, hey, this shit's messed up. So
yeah,
hold on. COVID. All right, well, there it is, Marky B. You get to watch us disassemble another motor. That's just
yet again. It doesn't look like it's been line honed either, and the fact that it had.
So now you're saying, well, take it up to Kevin, see if they can line hone it too.
Well, maybe just check it.
Kevin, I'm apologizing to you on camera, because I bring you just the most absolute like bullshit and just like nonsense. I'm like, hey Kevin, real quick, do you mind if you just fix this, because I bought it off some guy who said it was right and it's messed up? And Kevin's like, I hate you, bud, but I got you.
That's literally.
Like Kevin and all the guys at TCAM Performance, they have our back through and through, and I keep them on their toes. You know, I keep them on their toes. But Kevin and those guys out there, they're top notch. This is a perfect example. You guys can learn from my mistakes. I have no problem doing this and make some content. We get to disassemble motor. We'll get it right. In the end, it's going to be good. But you got to think, not all the people have the resources, have the time, And
no, this might be somebody they saved for a long time. They've made sacrifices in their life to where they can say, hey, I'm going to build an engine. You know, I'm not going to run the junkyard motors no more. And then they say, oh, found one on Turbo Bullet, I'm going to buy it. And then they put it in there and then it blows up. And I have seen, it's so sad too, because I've seen people that really takes the wind out of their sails and they just sell everything. I mean,
then they're done. So honestly, it might take you another year. It might take you another couple months. It might take you another couple weeks. If you could save up, go out there, get that TKM motor. You know it's going to be right. It's done by the professionals, proven. I'm not just doing this like this. I didn't plan any of this. This is a prime example of how quick I didn't even get off the engine stand. This is a prime example of how quick you're trying to save a couple dollars here and there, turn south, cost you way more in the end run to have a TKM, Black Sheep Stage 1, be out there going, into the fours. But now here I'm trying to fix what I got. It's going to cost me some more money. And, just learn. The whole reason why the whole YouTube channel, the whole John Doc, the whole Ellis Nasty started is just to record our experiences. And if you guys can learn something from it, great. If you just want to watch for some enjoyment, great. But this is one of those times it's a lesson. So.
Yeah. Buy once, cry once.
Yeah. That's it. We're going racing when we get back Monday. Bring us up TKM. See if I can slip a nice Abe Lincoln in Cornbread's pocket. Get this thing honed. And go from there.
Check it out.
Sounds pretty good. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. We'll see you guys in tomorrow's upload.
He get to buy this round. John Doc got to buy this round. The Black Sheep on the property. He got to buy for the next round.